Hey everyone, and welcome back to Becoming Ultimate Masters.
It's great to be here.
Today we're diving deep
Did it.
into the lives and teachings of three incredible mystics, Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross,
Yeah.
and Ignatius of Loyola.
Yeah,
Now you might be thinking, mystics,
right.
what do they have to do with my life? But trust me, these folks were dealing with some seriously intense stuff way back in the day, and their insights can be surprisingly relevant
Oh, yeah.
for young adults and high school students like you navigating the ups and downs of life in the 21st century.
Absolutely.
So we're going to uncover
Yeah.
a more powerful vocabulary
I like that.
for understanding your inner world and the challenges that you face.
Yeah, what's fascinating is that these mystics weren't,
Yeah.
born saints. They were real people
Yeah.
who experienced profound transformations, what we call conversion experiences.
Okay.
And their stories can offer us a new lens for understanding our own personal growth.
Okay, so conversion experiences.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about dramatic overnight transformations, right?
Right. Not necessarily. Think of it more as a significant shift in perspective, a change in your understanding of yourself and the world around you.
So like my personal trainer, Willie, who went from being a tough guy in the Chicago drug scene
Wow.
to a minister and a healer. He always talks about this moment of clarity he had that completely changed his path. Would that be considered a conversion experience?
Absolutely. Willie's story is a perfect example.
Yeah.
And what's striking is how the authenticity of these experiences
Right.
is often reflected in the lasting impact they have not only on the individual, but also on those around them.
Right.
It's like a ripple effect.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So if these profound shifts can happen to anyone, even someone like Willie, what can we learn from these mystics about navigating our own transformations?
One of the key takeaways is the power of language. The words we use to describe our experiences actually shape our reality, especially when it comes to personal growth and overcoming challenges.
It's like when people talk about energy in the context of healing or personal development.
Right.
It's a common term,
Yes.
but it can feel kind of vague, right?
Exactly. Now consider a term like grace.
Okay.
It points to something deeper, something beyond just energy. It connects us to a sense of faith, hope, and the possibility of a force greater than ourselves at work in our lives.
So instead of just saying, I need more energy,
Yeah.
you're saying it might be more powerful to say, I need more grace.
Precisely. Because framing your challenges as opportunities for grace can shift your perspective and foster resilience. It's like inviting a higher power to support you through difficult times.
Wow. That's actually a really powerful shift. It's like changing the channel in your mind from one of struggle to one of being supported. And this reminds me of Teresa of Avila's teachings. She talked about finding God
Yes.
in the everyday moments of life, not just waiting for some big miracle or sign.
Yes. She encourages us to seek the sacred in the ordinary, in the choices we make, in the little things we often take for granted.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for a neon sign from the universe, she's saying, look closer. The signs are already there.
Okay, but how do we actually do that? Like, what would be an example of finding something sacred in a normal day?
Imagine you're having a rough day. You miss the bus.
Right.
You failed a quiz.
Oh, no.
And your best friend's ignoring you. Instead of focusing on the negativity, you could choose to pause
Okay.
and appreciate the warmth of the sun on your skin,
Yeah.
the delicious smell of coffee from a nearby shop,
Yeah.
or even the simple fact that you're alive and breathing.
Those are great examples.
Yeah.
It's like training your mind to focus on the good, even when things are tough.
Yeah.
But doesn't that take a lot of effort?
It does, but it gets easier with practice.
Right.
And the rewards are huge. You start to see the world differently, and those small moments of grace become more and more apparent.
So it's about shifting our focus from what's going wrong to what's actually going right, even in the midst of challenges.
Absolutely.
And that kind of ties into taking responsibility for our lives right.
Yes.
We hear this phrase, I take responsibility, thrown around a lot. But does it really lead to genuine growth?
That's a great question, and I think it's important to be mindful of the language we use here.
Okay.
Saying, I take responsibility, can sometimes feel passive. A more potent alternative might be, I am accountable.
I am accountable.
Right.
I like how that sounds. It feels more active, more empowering.
Yes.
But what's the real difference between simply stating responsibility and truly owning your choices?
When you say, I'm accountable, You're not just acknowledging a situation. You're committing to understanding the why behind your actions, analyzing your choices, and actively seeking growth.
Yeah.
It's a deeper level of self-reflection.
So it's about recognizing that we are the authors of our own lives, and every choice we make, no matter how small, shapes who we become.
Exactly. It's about understanding that even when things feel out of our control, we always have the power to choose our responses.
That's a really powerful reminder.
Yeah.
It means that even when we mess up, we have the power to learn from our mistakes and make better choices next time.
Absolutely. It's about embracing the fact that we're all works in progress. And that's something that Teresa of Avila really emphasized too. She believed that self-knowledge was crucial
Yeah,
for making clear and conscious choices.
I can see how that's connected to accountability.
Right.
You can't really own your choices
Right.
if you don't understand who you are
Yeah.
and what motivates you.
Exactly. It's like setting sail without a compass.
Oh.
You might end up somewhere, but it probably won't be where you intended to go.
Speaking of journeys,
Yes.
this brings us to another powerful concept, the dark night of the soul, which John of the Cross wrote about extensively.
Yeah.
It's something that many people experience at some point in their lives, and it can be a really confusing and challenging time.
What's fascinating here is the connection to how science has evolved over the past century.
Okay.
Think about the emergence of quantum physics.
Okay.
It essentially forced us to embrace
Mm-hmm.
the invisible world
Yeah.
of energy and subatomic particles.
So just like the mystics were talking about this invisible realm centuries ago,
Yeah.
science is now proving that there's so much more to reality
Yes,
than what we can see with our physical eyes.
precisely. It challenges us to expand our understanding of what's real and what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
What if there are unseen forces at play in our lives,
Yeah.
influencing our experiences and shaping our destinies in ways we can't even fully comprehend?
That's a pretty mind-blowing thought. It
Yeah.
makes you wonder about all the synchronicities
Yeah.
and coincidences
Right.
that happen in life. Maybe they're not so random after all.
Exactly. Embracing this understanding can be incredibly transformative.
Yeah.
It can open us up to new possibilities, deeper connections, and a greater sense of purpose in our lives.
It all comes back to that shift in vocabulary, to using words that help us grasp these larger truths.
Absolutely.
Speaking of shifting our vocabulary,
Yeah.
Teresa of Avila also had a lot to say about humility.
Yes.
And it's a word that can have some negative connotations for people.
Right. It's often misunderstood. Humility isn't about putting yourself down or thinking less of yourself.
Okay.
It's about letting go of that constant need to prove yourself, to be right, to be the best.
You touched on this earlier,
Yeah.
but can you unpack that a bit more? What does letting go of deserving actually look like in real life?
It's about recognizing that we're not the center of the universe.
Okay.
It's about approaching life with a sense of openness and curiosity rather than a fixed mindset of entitlement.
Okay.
Imagine, for instance, instead of stewing over why you didn't get invited to that party, you choose to focus on enjoying the weekend doing something you love,
Okay.
whether it's reading a book, spending time with family, or exploring a new hobby. So it's about shifting our focus from what we think we're owed to what we can actually contribute to the world. It's about moving from me to we.
Exactly. And this ties back to the idea of being accountable. When we release that need to control outcomes, we open ourselves up to receiving what is truly meant for us without the limitations of our ego's expectations. It's about recognizing that we're not the center of the universe.
Right.
Right. It's about approaching life with a sense of openness and curiosity rather than a fixed mindset of entitlement.
Yeah, like you were saying about humility.
Yeah.
And how
Exactly.
it's not about diminishing yourself.
You know.
It's about letting go of that ego-driven need
Yes.
to be right, to be the best, to constantly prove yourself
Yes.
to the world.
Right?
So
Yeah.
you touched on this earlier, but can you unpack that a bit more? What does letting go of deserving actually look like in real life?
Imagine, for instance, instead of stewing over why you didn't get invited to that party, you choose to focus on enjoying the weekend, doing something you love. Okay, whether it's reading a book, spending time with family, or exploring a new hobby.
So it's about shifting our focus from what we think we're owed to what we can actually contribute
Yes.
to the world. It's about moving from me to we.
Exactly. And this ties back to the idea of being accountable.
Yeah.
When we release that need to control outcomes, we open ourselves up to receiving what is truly meant for us without the limitations of our ego's expectations.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about when things are really tough, like when we're dealing with a loss
Yeah.
or going through a major life change? Can we still find that sense of peace and acceptance in those moments?
That's when it's even more crucial to remember that we're not alone.
Okay.
We have this incredible support system
Yeah.
within us and around us,
Right.
even when we can't see it. Think of it as an invisible web of love and connection.
Okay.
We might not always feel it, but it's always there.
Okay, but how do we tap into that support
Right.
when we're feeling lost and alone? That's where the practices of these mystics can be so helpful.
All right.
They offer tools like meditation,
Okay.
prayer, or journaling for quieting the mind, connecting with our inner wisdom, and cultivating a sense of trust in something larger than ourselves.
That sounds amazing, but it also sounds a little daunting.
Sure.
Like, I can barely find time to do my homework,
Right.
let alone quiet my mind and connect with the universe.
I hear you. And that's why it's important to start small.
Okay.
Even 5 minutes of meditation or journaling each day can make a huge difference.
Okay.
The key is consistency.
Right.
Think of it like working out.
Yeah.
You don't have to run a marathon on your first day.
Yeah.
Just a few minutes of stretching and light exercise can set you on the path to better health.
So it's about making small daily choices that align us with our highest potential.
Right.
Like choosing to meditate instead of scrolling through social media for hours.
Exactly. It's about being more mindful of where we're directing our energy and attention. And remember, those small changes can have a ripple effect on our lives and the lives of those around us.
I love that image of a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Absolutely.
But sometimes it feels like my little efforts don't really make a difference.
You never know what impact you're having on others,
Really?
even in the smallest interactions. It's like throwing a pebble into a pond.
Oh.
You see the initial splash, but you can't always see how far those ripples travel.
That's a really encouraging thought.
Yeah.
It makes me want to be more intentional
Yes.
about my choices and actions.
And that intentionality is key. It's about living a life of purpose, not just drifting along on autopilot.
So how do we connect with that sense of purpose?
Yeah.
Especially when we're young and still figuring things out.
One of the best ways is to connect with nature.
Nature.
The mystics we're talking about.
Okay.
They all understood the power of spending time in nature.
Right.
They saw it as a source of wisdom. Okay.
Healing and connection to the divine.
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Like when you're hiking in the mountains or swimming in the ocean, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe and wonder.
Right.
But what if you live in a city
Yeah.
and don't have easy access to nature?
Even a small park or a tree-lined street can offer a sense of peace and connection.
Okay.
The key is to make a conscious effort to be present in those moments,
Right.
to tune into the sights, sounds, and sensations of the natural world.
It's like hitting the pause button on all the mental chatter
Yes.
and just allowing ourselves to be present in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the real magic happens.
Okay.
Because when we quiet the mind and open our hearts,
Yeah.
we create space for inspiration and guidance to flow through us.
Really?
We connect with that inner compass that Teresa of Avila was talking about.
So it's not just about finding our purpose, it's about allowing our purpose to find us.
Precisely.
Oh, wow.
And that's where trust comes in.
Trusting that we're on the right path, even when we don't have all the answers. Trusting that the universe has our back, even when things get messy.
That reminds me of something John of the Cross said about the dark night of the soul.
Oh, yeah.
He talked about those times when we feel lost and alone.
Right.
Like everything we believed in has crumbled around us. It sounds pretty scary, to be honest.
It can be a challenging experience,
Yeah.
for sure. But John of the Cross saw it as an opportunity
Okay.
for profound spiritual growth. He believed that by surrendering to the darkness, by letting go of our old beliefs and attachments,
Okay.
we create space for something new and more authentic to emerge.
So it's not about avoiding the darkness. It's about learning to navigate it.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that we're not alone in those moments.
Right.
We have this incredible support system,
Yeah.
both within us and around us.
It's like when you go through a tough breakup,
Right.
it can feel like your whole world is falling apart.
Yeah.
But then you realize that you have these amazing friends and family who are there to support you.
Right.
And you start to see that the breakup was actually an opportunity for growth and healing.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's like those tough experiences, those dark nights,
Yeah.
they crack us open and allow more light to shine in.
So it's not about trying to avoid the difficult stuff.
Right.
It's about learning to lean into it
Yes,
and trusting that we'll come out stronger on the other side.
absolutely. And it's about recognizing that those challenges, those dark nights,
Yeah.
they're not a sign that we've done something wrong.
Okay.
They're an invitation to deepen our connection to ourselves
Right.
and to something larger than ourselves.
It's like they're pushing us to evolve to become more fully who we're meant to be.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that brings us back to the idea of conversion experiences.
Okay.
They're not always dramatic, overnight transformations. They
Right.
can be subtle shifts in perspective, moments of clarity that guide us towards our true path.
It's like we're constantly being invited to step into a more authentic version of ourselves.
Precisely.
Wow.
And that journey of self-discovery, it's a lifelong adventure.
It's like we're all on this epic quest,
Yeah.
and the mystics are our guides, offering us wisdom and encouragement along the way.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Okay.
You have this incredible community of support,
Right.
both visible and invisible,
Yeah?
to help you navigate the ups and downs of the journey.
That's such a powerful reminder. I think a lot of young people feel like they have to figure everything out on their own.
And that's simply not true. We're all in this together,
Mm-hmm.
learning and growing and supporting each other along the way.
Yeah,
And that's what makes life so beautiful, isn't it?
it really is.
The connections we make,
Mhm.
the love we share, the
Yeah.
impact we have on one another.
It really is. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected, part of something much larger than ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And when we embrace that interconnectedness, when we step into our true power and purpose,
Mhm.
we become beacons of light for others.
We become the change we want to see in the world.
And that's what these mystics were all about,
Right.
inspiring us to live lives of purpose, meaning, and connection.
Wow.
They were showing us the way back home to ourselves.
Speaking of finding our way,
Yeah.
one of the mystics we haven't talked much about yet is Ignatius of Loyola.
Right.
He had a really interesting approach to decision-making
Yes.
and finding your path.
Mm-hmm.
He developed something called discernment of spirits,
Yes.
which sounds kind of mystical and maybe even a little intimidating.
It might sound complex, but it's actually a very practical tool for making choices that are aligned with your values and your deepest desires.
Okay.
Imagine you're facing a tough decision,
Okay.
like whether to apply to a certain college or break up with your boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
Ignatius encourages us to pay attention to our feelings and thoughts, to notice where we feel resistance and where we feel a sense of flow.
So it's like tuning into our intuition, that gut feeling that tells us whether something is right or wrong for us.
Exactly. But Ignatius takes it a step further.
Yeah.
He suggests that we also pay attention to the spirits that might be influencing our decision.
Okay, spirits, like ghosts.
Not quite. He's talking about the different energies or motivations that might be at play
Okay.
in our decision-making process.
Right.
For example, is your decision driven by fear or love,
Mm-hmm.
ego or compassion?
Okay.
Are you trying to please others or follow your own inner guidance?
That's such an interesting way to look at it. So it's about becoming aware of the underlying forces that are shaping our choices.
Right.
But how do we know which spirit to listen to? Like, how do we tell the difference between a good spirit and a bad spirit?
That's where discernment comes in.
Okay.
It's about cultivating a sense of inner awareness, of paying attention to how different choices make you feel.
So if a decision feels heavy or constricted, like it's closing you down,
Yeah.
that might be a sign that it's not aligned with your true path.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And if a decision feels expansive and energizing, like it's opening you up to new possibilities, that's a good indication that you're on the right track.
It's like that feeling of excitement and anticipation you get
Yeah,
when you're about to embark on a new adventure.
precisely.
Wow.
And Ignatius encourages us to cultivate those feelings,
Okay.
to notice the choices that bring us joy, peace, and a sense of purpose.
So it's not just about making the right decision, it's about making the decision that feels most aligned with who we are and who we're becoming.
Exactly. It's about trusting our inner compass,
Hmm.
that wise and loving voice within us that knows the way.
I love that image of a wise and loving voice within us.
Yeah.
It makes me think of those times when I've ignored my gut feeling
Yeah.
and made a decision that I later regretted.
Right.
Like, it's
right.
like that voice was trying to warn me, but I wasn't listening.
We've all been there. Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to
Right.
cultivate that inner awareness, to learn to trust our intuition.
It's like we have this built-in guidance system,
Yeah.
but we often forget to use it.
And the more we practice listening to that inner voice, the stronger and clearer it becomes.
It's like strengthening a muscle.
Right.
The more we use it, the more powerful it becomes.
Exactly.
But what about those times when we're really struggling to hear that inner voice?
Yes.
Like when we're feeling overwhelmed or confused or just plain lost? What can we do then?
That's where the practices of these mystics can be so helpful.
Okay.
They offer tools like meditation, prayer, and journaling for quieting the mental chatter and creating space for that inner wisdom to emerge.
So it's not just about making space in our schedules.
Right.
It's about making space in our minds.
Exactly. Because when we clear the clutter, both internal and external,
Yeah.
we create the conditions for clarity and insight to flow through us.
It's like we're clearing the channels for that divine guidance to come through. Precisely.
Wow.
And that guidance, it's always available to us.
Right.
We just have to be willing to listen.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like we have this direct line to the universe, but we often forget to pick up the phone.
And that's the beauty of the mystical path.
Yeah.
It's about rediscovering that connection, that inherent wisdom that resides within each and every one of us.
It's about remembering who we truly are. Powerful,
Yeah.
creative, and connected to something far greater than ourselves.
Exactly. And when we embrace that truth, we unlock a world of possibilities.
We become the ultimate masters of our own lives.
And that mastery, it's not about control or domination.
Okay.
It's about surrender.
Surrender.
It's about letting go of the ego's need to be in charge and allowing ourselves to be guided by something larger than ourselves.
That sounds paradoxical.
Right.
How can we be masters of our lives if we're surrendering control?
It's about understanding that true power lies in letting go. It's about trusting that the universe has a plan for us, even when we can't see it.
It's like that saying, let go and let God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we surrender to that higher power, when we allow ourselves to be guided by something larger than ourselves,
Okay.
we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities. We tap into a source of strength and wisdom that we could never access through our own limited efforts.
It's like we're plugging into a universal power source.
Right.
But what does that actually look like in everyday life?
Yeah.
Like, how do we know if we're truly surrendering or just giving up?
That's a great question, and it goes back to the idea of discernment.
Okay.
Surrender is about letting go of the ego's need to control outcomes. It's about trusting that things will unfold as they're meant to.
Right.
Even if it's not according to our own timeline or expectations.
Okay.
Giving up, on the other hand, is about resigning ourselves to defeat.
Right.
It's about losing hope and allowing fear to dictate our choices.
So surrender is about trusting.
Yes.
While giving up is about fearing.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that's why it's so important to cultivate a strong connection to our inner guidance, to that wise and loving voice within us that knows the way.
It's like we have this internal compass that's always pointing us in the right direction, but we have to learn to tune in to its signals.
And that's where the practices of these mystics can be so helpful.
Okay.
They offer tools for quieting the mind, connecting with our intuition, and cultivating a sense of trust in something larger than ourselves.
So it's not just about reading about these mystics, it's about putting their teachings into practice in our own lives.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's about taking those small daily steps that align us with our highest potential.
Right.
It's about making choices that nourish our souls and bring us joy.
Okay.
It's about showing up in the world with love, compassion, and authenticity.
And it's about remembering that we're not alone on this journey.
Yes.
We have this incredible community of support, both visible and invisible,
Absolutely.
to help us navigate the ups and downs of life.
Absolutely.
This has been such an inspiring conversation.
Yeah, it has.
I feel like I have a whole new vocabulary
Right.
for understanding my inner world and navigating the challenges of life. As we wrap up,
Yes.
is there one key takeaway you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I'd say it's this. You have everything you need within you to live a life of purpose, meaning, and connection. Trust your inner guidance,
Okay.
embrace the journey, and never be afraid to ask for help along the way.
So well said. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the lives and teachings of these incredible mystics.
It's been amazing.
We hope you found this episode inspiring and insightful.
Absolutely.
Be sure to subscribe and share this with your friends and family who might also be blessed with this information.
Yes. Spread the word.
And don't forget to check back daily for a new episode.
Yes, we'll have more.
If you're looking for more guidance on your own journey of self-discovery,
Yeah.
you can visit www.ultimatemasters.org/coaching
Right?
or send a WhatsApp message to +256-771-324-111
Right.
for more information.
You got it.
Until next time, may your journey be filled with grace, wisdom, and wonder.
Take care.
Yeah, it really is a lifelong process of learning and growing.
Yeah.
And speaking of growth, you mentioned earlier that Ignatius of Loyola had a very specific approach to decision-making.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Ignatius believed that God was constantly communicating with us, guiding us towards our highest good. He called this process discernment of spirits, and it's all about learning to recognize the different voices or spirits that are influencing our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Okay, spirits. So we're not talking about like ghosts or anything, right?
Right. Think of them as different energies or motivations that might be at play in our decision-making. For instance, are you being driven by fear or love? Are you trying to please others or follow your own heart?
Okay.
Ignatius encourages us to pay attention to those subtle cues, those inner nudges that are guiding us towards or away from our true path.
So it's about becoming aware of the underlying forces that are shaping our choices.
Exactly.
But how do we know which spirit to listen to? How can we tell the difference between a good spirit and a bad spirit, so to speak?
That's where discernment comes in. It's about cultivating that inner awareness, learning to trust your intuition. Does a decision make you feel expansive and energized, like it's opening you up to new possibilities?
Okay.
Or does it feel heavy and constricted, like it's closing you down? Pay attention to those feelings, those gut instincts, because they're often trying to tell you something important.
So if a choice feels exciting and aligned with your values, it's probably a good sign. And if it feels off, like it's causing you anxiety or doubt, that might be a red flag.
Exactly. And sometimes you might need to sit with a decision for a while, to pray or meditate on it, to really get clear on what's motivating you. It's about being patient and trusting that the right answer will emerge in its own time.
It's like giving yourself permission to slow down and listen to that inner wisdom. It's
Yeah.
not always about rushing to a decision, but rather allowing the decision to unfold naturally. That resonates a lot with what we were discussing earlier about surrender.
Absolutely. Because true discernment often involves letting go of the ego's need to control outcomes. It's about trusting that the universe has a plan for you, even if you can't see the full picture just yet.
It's like taking a leap of faith and trusting that you'll land on your feet. But what about those times when we make a decision and it turns out to be the wrong one? How do we deal with that? Especially as young people, there's a lot of pressure to make the right choices. To get good grades, get into the best college, choose the perfect career path.
And that's where self-compassion comes in. Because no matter how hard we try, we're all going to make mistakes along the way. We're all going to stumble and fall and have to pick ourselves back up again.
Right.
The important thing is to not beat ourselves up when we make a mistake, but to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a good friend.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, I messed up again, I'm such a failure, we can say, okay, I made a mistake. What can I learn from this? How can I do better next time?
Exactly. And remember, mistakes are often our greatest teachers. They show us where we need to grow, where we need to course correct, and where we need to develop more resilience. They're all part of the journey.
I love that. It takes the pressure off of trying to be perfect all the time. It's
Yeah.
okay to mess up. It's okay to not have all the answers. What matters is that we keep learning, keep growing, and keep moving forward.
And that's where the teachings of these mystics can be so helpful. They remind us that we're not alone on this journey, that we have this incredible support system both within us and around us, guiding us every step of the way. They teach us to trust our intuition, to lean into the unknown, and to embrace the beauty and messiness of being human.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I feel like I have a whole new vocabulary for understanding my inner world and navigating the challenges of life. As we wrap up, is there one key takeaway you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I'd say it's this. You have everything you need within you to live a life of purpose, meaning, and connection. Trust your inner guidance, embrace the journey, and never be afraid to ask for help along the way.
So well said. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the lives and teachings of these incredible mystics. We hope you found it insightful. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with others who might benefit from these incredible teachings. Check back daily for a new episode and visit www.ultimatemasters.org/coaching or WhatsApp plus 256-771-324-119 for more information. Until next time, may you find grace and wisdom in every step of your journey.
Take care.